Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
What's up, nerds? Welcome to another episode of the Multiverse Report. We are recapping the week's nerdy news from DC and Marvel to Substack and everywhere in between. If you don't know what I mean by what I just said, stay tuned. We're going to cover it in just a minute. My name is Mike Gibson, one of your co-hosts. With me, as always, is Steve Haller. What's up, Steve?
Well, apparently everybody leaving major publishers for their own gig. That seems to be what's up.
Craziness. There's such big comic book news this week. We normally end the show by talking about comics, the medium that we love so very much, and inspires all of the other adaptations that we love talking about and watching. But the news that broke this week was so big. It broke, and then it kept breaking and kept getting bigger as more names were added. We felt like we had to talk about comics up front, so we are starting episode 14 of the Multiverse Report with our comic section. So our top story is top creators from both Marvel and DC Comics leaving, turning down new contracts, and getting paid by a service called Substack. What is Substack? Raise your hand if you'd heard of Substack before this week or before the words coming out of my mouth right now. Like, hardly anybody. Substack is like a newsletter service. It's kind of like a Patreon newsletter service where people can sign up for updates and exclusive digital content from creators that are on that platform. Now, back in June, I guess it was reported that outgoing Amazing Spider-Man writer Nick Spencer from Marvel, he was like the first big name to sign a deal with Substack, and that was like, oh, Substack, this service that isn't very well known, but they're getting into digital comic books, and they're going to start with this Nick Spencer guy doing like creator-owned books, inventing his own stories and storylines. And he was also, one article kind of mentioned that he was tasked with like recruiting other writers to the platform. Now, whether or not that's true, I don't know, but if it is true, he did a great job because holy crap.
Yeah.
Jonathan Hickman, the mastermind behind Marvel's relaunch of the X-Books, he's the puppet master for all the 30,000 X-Men titles that are currently being published, announced this week that he is leaving his run on X-Men. He's leaving Marvel to do work with Substack, exclusively through Substack, creator-owned books. He's going to do a book called 3 Worlds, 3 Moons, and he's going to have writers, similar to the way he's doing the X-Books, he's bringing in other writers to kind of like oversee different books as, telling the story that he's kind of laid out. He's Ram V, Teenie Howard, to assist in writing those books. So, and those people haven't assigned exclusive contracts, but, who knows what down the line.
Yeah.
So that was the first one. Sorry, go ahead. Talk about Hickman.
Well, that's the other thing too, is they're doing this. We mentioned Spencer and Hickman are getting these exclusive gigs, and another one that we'll drop in a minute, which is we've talked about more about him on the podcast than just about any other writer, but they're also grabbing all these guys on non-exclusive gigs too. So Teenie Howard, who her run on Excalibur was awesome, leading into all the X of Swords and the whole mess that Hickman has been working in his Hickmanverse, formerly Hickmanverse,
soon to be former.
Yeah, so it's really intriguing how they're going about this. Like, I'm happy that they're grabbing all this talent, but there's more to come. Let's put it that way.
There's more to come. And yeah, you referenced this a second ago, Steve, that we've talked about James Tynion IV a number of times on this show, and talking about, man, he's got all these books in publication. He's writing, mother flipping Batman for DC, and he's also got huge success with Something Is Killing the Children and Wind and Department of Truth, and he's got all these other books that he's juggling. How does somebody do that? Well, apparently you don't. Apparently you turn down a new contract from DC, and you take an exclusive contract with Substack to create your own creative-owned material. DC offered James Tynion a 3-year renewal to stay on Batman and write other titles for DC, but he chose to go with a contract from Substack. The first title he's going to be creating is a UFO story called Blue Book, and he's actually going to be doing other works, including non-comic writing, like a prose and illustration book, a novella, and a long-form horror story, and I'm sure there's going to be other comic book work as well. Again, these are creator-owned books that he is going to own the publishing on. He's going to own the IP. It's different than if you're writing. I think I said this analogy on another episode, but if you're hired to write for Marvel or DC, they have the toys. They're just loaning you the toys, and you get to play with them in the way that you want to play with them. A creator-owned book is something that you are creating from start to finish, and you are the sole owner of. So obviously this is a benefit for these writers, that they can create their own thing, and they're not reliant on, a giant corporation to tell them what they can and can't do. And just real quick, some other big writers that are going to be producing stuff for Substack, not necessarily exclusively. Hickman and Tynion, I believe, are exclusively, as far as I know.
Well, that with Tynion, that irks me a little, because what's that going to do with Boom? Is it a non-DC exclusive, or is is something that is killing the children going to die?
I have heard that he is staying on those books.
Okay.
He's gonna finish those arcs, or those stories at least, in addition to the Substack work. He's only leaving DC. He's leaving DC specifically, but he's staying on because Something Is Killing Children is a creator-owned book as well. True. So he does have, he has that contract with Boom, and Boom does a lot of creator-owned stuff, as does Image and things like that.
Yeah, they're doing the publishing, but it's his book.
But it's his book, exactly. So he probably feels like he can keep that going longer than having to write Batman and whatever else.
Or his lawyers told him, you can keep doing this.
Yeah, exactly. Real quick, other writers that have signed non-exclusive deals include Saladin Ahmed from Miles Morales Spider-Man, Chip Zdarsky, wow, Molly Osternag, and Scott Snyder, who we talked about have a huge deal with Comixology last week or 2 weeks ago. He's not writing comics, but he's actually doing an instructional newsletter for Substack about breaking into comics and, just advice to new creators and things like that. Holy crap. Now, how is Substack this service that nobody knows about, or not many people know about? It's not like we're talking about, I don't know, Instagram getting into comics or something like that, But Substack, I guess, got a big influx of money from venture capitalists over the last year or so, and they're choosing to use some of that money to hire these creators. So Substack is paying these creators up front for their work, and then they're going to take a majority of their subscription fees. And I think that model is going to change over time, but initially that is how these characters are being, or not characters, sorry, these creators are being paid. So before we there's a flip side of this, a darker side to Substack that we'll get into a little bit. Steve, what do you think about this? I don't even really know how to talk about this, because this is such a big shift. And if something like this ends up being successful, are we going to see other big time writers for the big two, being DC and Marvel? When I say the big two, moving to Substack or other similar platforms, and who's gonna fill the void left at the positive spin on this? I just have such mixed emotions about this. I love James Tynion's work, and I specifically love his work on Batman. I've praised his work on his run on Batman on the show previously.
Yep.
But I don't know that I'm not reading Batman because James Tynion is writing it. I'm reading Batman because I like reading Batman.
Right.
So am I going to stop reading Batman because he leaves and goes to Substack? No, I'm probably not. I'm going to keep reading Batman and whoever until I don't like what it's doing anymore, How many people are going to follow the creator versus it's creator versus character, basically, when it comes to at least the work that these people were doing for Marvel and DC. Are you going to follow the creator, or are you there because you want to read about that character that they were writing? I don't know, Steve. What do you think about any of this.
I think it'll be a combination of the both. I think what they're trying to grab is, you're going to grab every Batman title that comes out. I'm going to grab whatever X-Men run comes out. But, if I see Zdarsky's name on something, I'm probably going to give it another look. Like, Spider-Man Life Story grabbed me like that, and he nailed that. Like, his Daredevil run has been great from what I've read.
But that's also because you like Spider-Man and you like Daredevil. If it's Chip Zdarsky on something you've never heard of before, are you going to grab that? Like, I feel like, to me personally, there's not a ton, as much as I love and respect the medium of comics and writers, like, there aren't a ton of writers for me personally that I will pick up blind, having no clue about the character. Like Tom King, maybe, is the first one that I can think of.
Right.
They'll be like, oh, this must be good, or at least worth reading, because I've read so much of his stuff that's proven to me.
But look at who they grabbed. They grabbed Hickman and Tynion as exclusives.
Yeah, I know.
Like, those are two names that are literally like that.
You're right,
after Hickman's Avengers, it was like when he came on X, it was like, oh, it's Hickman. Okay. With Tynion, it's like, when you found out about Something Is Killing the Children, how'd you end up finding that?
Well, I didn't. I heard the title, and I heard that it was good. And I heard I heard like a description of it, but I didn't know that it took me a second to line up. Oh, this is the same guy that's going to start writing Batman in a few months. Like, it wasn't,
See, and that's his other book that he just dropped. God, this is great for the media. What's
the other horror book that Tynion's
Yeah. Yep.
The Nice House on the Lake, is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I added that to my sub just because it was Tynion. So
yeah,
I guess it's kind of,
you're right.
Once and I guess if you're to a certain echelon, you can get to that point. But and I guess that makes sense with why they're throwing money at Hickman and Tynion and Spencer. Love him or hate him for what he did on Amazing Spider-Man. Definitely wasn't my favorite run, but he he's a name that's well known. So they're kind of grabbing it how you have to. And from what interviews with Tynion, like, or his, what was it, his he had like an opus that he put out saying why he's doing it. And he announced it directly from his own Twitter or whatever, social media. And the gist of it was, they're throwing me a boatload of money and I can't say no.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah,
okay,
and he also mentioned that yeah, exactly. And he also mentioned that, just like as you and I have spoken about, he writes so many different titles.
Right.
He also referenced that if he had stayed at DC and pursued all these creator-owned opportunities, he just would not have the time to do both things. And it makes a lot of sense that you would rather go for the things that you own, and you're getting paid a certain amount of money to make things that you own, versus you getting paid, even if it's comparable amount of money, you're putting a lot of work into something that isn't yours.
Right.
And it's just, I guess it's just going to be really interesting to see if this pays off for Substack. Like, how many people are going to follow these creators versus staying for the characters that they want to read.
Right.
And how many? I feel like there's different levels of readers. Like there's like, I'm only here because of Batman and it looks shiny and it's pretty, and there's other levels that are like deeper comics nerds that know who the creators are, who the writers are, who the artists are, and I can't say I'm an expert on every name, every name on every book right now, but
right.
I guess I don't know. Like, I can't see myself signing up for this new service and paying a new thing on top of all the other whatever subscription services I have, or books that I buy regularly. So I mean, personally, I can't. I guess I would have to I want to see I read some reviews of the books and see some art and stuff like that before I kind of make this decision. And I don't know how many people are gonna follow them there. I guess I don't. Right. I just don't see it as being. I don't see it as being some new format for getting your books. Although I could be totally wrong. Just because I don't feel that way doesn't mean that it couldn't completely revolutionize the industry. Well,
and it may be a weird combination that they're looking for, where you're going to have some people that follow the guys there, and then some people, find out you follow a Hickman or Tynion there, and then also, they'll have embedded ads for, hey, Zdarsky's doing this, or Snyder's doing this, or, keep keep you in the ecosystem type thing.
Yeah.
And it may just be that they're trying to use these two as hooks, or the names they've tossed around as hooks to get other people coming in. So
Right.
And in all honesty, it may be similar. Like, if it takes off, it's going to be very similar to what happened with the MCU, where, yeah, they gave Hickman and Tinian a boatload of money, but if they're taking all the money from the subs, they're making out. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And also the fact that it's only digital. I mean, I guess a lot of people read comics digitally, but
Yeah, that turns me off a little too.
I think comics and graphic novels are the only print medium whose numbers have increased over the last few years. Like, more people are buying physical comic books, whether you're talking about the floppies or the trades. So I mean, that's kind of a turnoff for me as well. Like, oh, there's no way I can get a physical. Like, I do read digital comics. I prefer reading them physically. I prefer holding them in my hand. So, like, you're telling me there's no way I can get a physical copy of this at all? I guess there's been rumors that, maybe after a while they'll get released physically through Dark Horse or whatever, but
right.
or just another indie or something, or maybe the publisher's choosing. Like, who knows if they're going to really own the book.
But either way, no floppies. So, best case,
Exactly.
we're getting a trade or an omnibus.
Yeah, most likely. And if there's no option, it's not like Kickstarter where you can pledge for a digital copy, or you can pledge for a physical copy, or both.
Right.
And speaking of which, I saw someone mention this on Twitter, I think, about comparing to, there's maybe something to be said where, like, for a long time, and still a lot of people view the Kickstarter model as the future of comic books, because it's like a groundswell of indie creators asking for pledges for their own work, and that's kind of like creating a community around the book. It's like ground up, you know what I mean? It's like starting from the ground and building up, whereas this is just like a bunch of venture capitalists throwing money at established creators and hoping that trickles down to subscriptions.
Trickle down economics always works, Mike.
Always works. That's what I'm saying. It's always the right idea. God. So anyway, it's just a really interesting.
And that's not even the dumbest thing that could happen with Substack, because there's been some issues.
Yes, the thing that we haven't mentioned yet, and that unfortunately I feel like a lot of outlets aren't really covering this in the articles that I've read. I've only read, I think, one full article that mentioned it, and some Twitter threads commenting on it. One that I retweeted from our Twitter profile. Apparently, Substack has been criticized a few times by I don't know how many times. It has come under criticism for allowing targeted harassment of members of the LGBTQ plus community, people that use Substack, specifically seemingly trans people, get harassed on that platform all the time, and there's no real policing from Substack as a whole as to what you can and can't say, which I guess is a reason that a lot of these harassing trolls have gone to that platform, similar to why a lot of conservative, right-wing, racist people were dropping Twitter and Facebook and going to this Parler app for under the guise of free speech, and I can just say whatever I want, meaning I can insult and demean whoever I want, and no one's going to yell at me. I'm not going to get smacked by Facebook or suspended from Twitter or whatever. Seem like kind of the same thing. Like, journalists or writers who want to write terrible, deplorable things have found Substack because they will not get in trouble for writing terrible and horrible things and harassing other members of the Substack community that happen to be LGBTQ plus people. So, what's up with that? What's up with that, Substack? And why?
In short, not great, Bob. Not great.
Not great, Bob. Not great. And why? I would love to see some kind of statement of response from that, from Hickman or Spencer or Tinian or anybody else that has signed one of these exclusive deals. Especially, I mean, everybody's their own person, but you and I talked before we went on air. James Tinian is an out bisexual creator, and it seems, if he knew that ahead of time, it seems weird that he would sign that contract. I don't know what was going through his head or what was said to him or how he views that. It would be up to him to respond to. And I would hope that somebody does. I would come out about this because, like I said, I saw it.
Yeah. No,
I saw it all over the place, on Twitter, and a very in-depth blog post that I wish I had the link to, talking about it specifically. It's someone on Substack. Nathan, what's the guy's name? Nathan Tankus, .substack.com, writes a large, or not large, but like lengthy blog post about why he is leaving Substack, and it is because of the allowed continued harassment of trans creators on that platform. So what's up with that?
I'm sure there's more to come. Yeah.
And it also, I mean, that's another thing that makes me not want to pledge to this and think that it's a bad idea in general. So I don't know. So that's a whole lot. If you have your opinions on it, if you're watching us live on YouTube, throw it in the chat. Steve is monitoring it. You can also send us an email or tweet at us with your opinions on these things, and we will, keep talking about it as it develops. Coincidentally, so James Tynion's leaving his Batman run earlier than anybody thought that he was. He's going to be leaving this fall, coinciding with Bruce Wayne leaving Gotham City. Seemingly the end of James Tynion's Batman run will end with Bruce Wayne possibly leaving the mantle of Batman altogether and leaving Gotham City for parts unknown, causing a new Batman to have to rise up in Gotham City. This has happened before. Bruce Wayne died a few years ago, and there had to be there's a whole battle for the cowl thing that happened. Ended up going to Dick Grayson. He was Batman for a while, which I really, really liked. And I guess all I need to say about this is that if they're gonna do this, if Bruce Wayne's not gonna be Batman, I would like him to not be Batman for quite a while.
Give it a good break in there.
Give it a good break, because I really like Dick Grayson as Batman. I followed those books pretty well when they were coming out, and I don't know. It's like if you're gonna do it, really do it, and stick to it. Like if you're gonna kill somebody, they got to be dead. Like let them be dead for a while so we can feel the void. Like I would love to see a Gotham City that is, being protected by either a new Batman or just all of his sidekicks, like the Robins or whatever come together, being, the Robins collectively being Nightwing, Red Hood, Tim Drake Robin, Damian Robin, Stephanie, and all the other side characters, whatever. Like that'll be interesting. If he's leaving, I just hope he's gone for a while to like long enough to let audiences find out about the new Batman themselves and like come to it and understand who it is, what they're doing, like give it some breathing room, give it a chance to fail, but also give it a chance to succeed. Yeah. That's all I have to say about that.
No, and it'll be interesting to see. Like you said, they've tried it before, they've done it before. We'll see if it actually works out this time. Something that they've tried before and worked the first time, they're going to flip in reverse, because Captain America and Iron Man have a new series announced. In the past, they've been on opposite sides of a civil war. Sure. At present, they're teaming up to battle Hydra. So we're going to see a new miniseries from writer Derek Landy and Angela Unzetta on the art coming in November. So revolves around the two heroes going after an escaped Hydra agent, but it isn't long before Tony and Steve realize they both have a personal connection to this mysterious criminal. Don't know what that's going to be, but we'll find out, I'm sure.
So have they ever done a Captain America Iron Man miniseries before, or like
just the two of them? Or like where the two of them are the focus, like without the rest of the team? I don't remember any off the top of my head.
I know. Neither did I, and I hadn't even thought of it until I saw this announcement this week. That seems like they should, like, DC's has had an ongoing Batman and Superman book for just years.
Right.
And it's like canceled and been rebooted or whatever, but for such a long time there's been Batman Superman books.
Yep.
And it seems strange that Marvel hasn't done the same thing, I guess. And it's not something I haven't even never thought of until this week. Like, why don't they have a Captain America Iron Man ongoing series? And this is even just a mini series. Maybe they're testing the water to see how it goes, but it would make a lot of sense.
I mean, they've had series and miniseries of team-ups from everybody else under the sun, but for some reason, I don't remember any, like, just the two of them going out and, having a buddy cop Cap and Iron Man series.
Yeah, I think it could work really well. Obviously, like similar to Superman and Batman, they have the same goals, but they have different methodologies.
Yeah.
You know, clearly we saw that in Civil War and all over the MCU. So we know that there's inherent kind of drama there between the two of them, and you know, some backstory. So I think this could be good, and I guess I'd like to see it turn into a regular ongoing series.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, finishing up our earlier than usual comics segment this week with another Kickstarter call out. This is one of our pretty new segments that we've been trying to do. As we mentioned earlier, Kickstarter is kind of a go-to place for indie creators to get their books funded. So we've been trying to do it weekly. Sometimes every other week we do a Kickstarter call out to a campaign that is still ongoing. This campaign we're shouting out this week is from a guy named Rob McDonald, who's from England, currently living in the Netherlands, I believe, and he's trying to get a book funded called Pyre, Pyre. Pyre looks incredible, very haunting and intense artwork. The description for the series is a psychological horror in a superhero costume. A character-driven story about abuse, identity, and the family that we choose. Described as Hereditary meets Daredevil. What? Say that one more time. Hereditary, the film, meets Daredevil, the superhero. Awesome. A story about abusive relationships and how we can be eroded by someone else's actions. This volume 1 is a 40-page book, so it's like a double-sized issue. There's only 9 days left, and they got quite a ways to go on their goal. So hit up Kickstarter. Just put in Pyre, Pyre, in the search results, or not in the search results, in the search bar. It'll be the first thing that comes up. Check it out. Like I said, the artwork looks very intense and creepy if you're into any kind of like horror, psychological superhero mashup. It seems like what it is, and I don't know, I pledged to this today. I'm gonna get myself a nice physical copy of this book, hopefully when it is funded. So please get out there and show some love to Pyre and Rob McDonald on Kickstarter, because it looks great. Have you got a chance to check this out, Steve?
I have not, because life got in the way. I think you sent it to me a couple days ago, and I just completely missed it. But it's you had me at Hereditary meets Daredevil, so I'm probably going to look a little deeper into this one.
Yeah, the description on this isn't a spoiler because it's the description on the Kickstarter page. It kind of talks about how there's like a female vigilante hero, I guess that's the Daredevil kind, with an arch enemy. It's introduced really quick, and early on in the story, she kills him. And from the way they described it, it seemed like a what if Batman finally killed the Joker kind of thing. But then the main story takes place afterwards about how she deals with that, either the hole in her life and the feeling she has about what she did, coming to terms with how she did it and what she did it and why she did it, and that kind of like maybe seemingly torturing her and sending her to some bad places. So seemed very intriguing to me. So again, Kickstarter call out for Pyre by Rob McDonald. Get out there. Let's get this book funded, people. All right, now, moving out of comics. Normally this would be where we wrap up the show, but we haven't even talked about movies and TV yet, Steve. We're just getting into it. So here we go. DC. Got some cool DC news this week. The man himself, Michael Keaton, talking about his return as Batman in the Flash movie. Now, this has been announced for over a year, or was rumored over a year ago. Finally got confirmed, I think, earlier this year, that Michael Keaton was returning to the Flash movie as Bruce Wayne Batman, specifically the same Bruce Wayne Batman that he played in the 2 Tim Burton movies from the early 90s. And I'm just very, very excited about it. And this was the first time I had seen him speak about it. He spoke to Collider. They asked him what it was like when he was stepping on the set as Batman or as Bruce Wayne for the first time. They said, how was it? And he said it was weirdly and ironically easy. A little bit emotional, but just a rush of memories. Without giving anything away, basically the first shot, not of the entire movie, but let's say the introduction, assumingly he's saying the introduction of Batman, is so good. We walked on and started talking about a couple shots and the angles, and I just went, whoa, this is big. this is great. I don't even mean just for me, just the imagery. It's great and very reminiscent to some degree of Tim Burton. So, Steve,
Yeah.
I just can't tell you how excited I am to see to see Michael Keaton as Batman again.
Yeah,
it's just gonna be great.
You know, when it's weird because when we saw him as Adrian Toomes, I was like, oh, Michael Keaton really hasn't aged a day since 1989. He's got the Paul Rudd thing going for him, where it's like they're probably gonna have to de-age him a little, but it's not gonna be anything too crazy.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I don't think that they're. I think that the time.
Oh, is it gonna be present day-ish?
Time has passed. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
exactly. I think
Even
he's.
better.
I mean, the assumption that is all but confirmed is that the Flash is going to be a multiverse movie. Yeah. So the Flash will run into the Speed Force, and he will come out in another Earth or another universe, whatever, and that will be the Tim Burton Batman verse. And time will have passed. Real time will have passed in that universe, and Michael Keaton has aged a certain number of years, and that number of years will have passed. And there's somehow a Supergirl involved as well. I don't know. I'm really excited about this movie because it could just literally be anything. It could be 2 hours of the Flash running from the Michael Keaton Batman to the George Clooney Batman to all the Batmans, to this Christopher Reeve Superman universe, or like to the CW universe, Arrowverse. Like, it could be anything. And I hope it's not everything, but it just could be anything, because when you start trying to get too much, then you kind of lose control. But Andy Muschietti, the filmmaker, he's a good filmmaker. He's a good writer and director, and so I guess I have a lot of trust in him, which is making me more hopeful than skeptical about The Flash. And I feel like Michael Keaton, he's a pretty straightforward guy. I think if he didn't really think it was going to be good, he'd probably be a little bit more cagey about how he responded to questions like this, I guess.
Right, wouldn't be praising it up and down, left and right, saying this is great, this is big.
Just be like, I can't really talk about it or something.
Right. Here, NDA, enjoy.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm excited about that. Another thing we got this week from DC is season 3 of Titans. HBO Max dropped the first 3 episodes of season 3 of Titans. This show originated for the DCU app, when that was an app that you could both read comic books and watch original programming on. I miss it, but I do like that these shows, most of them, have found new life on HBO Max. Steve, we talked before, you have watched all 3 of the debut episodes of Titans. I'm not sure how many they're going to be. I assume there's going to be probably at least 10, probably between 8 and 13 somewhere.
Somewhere in there.
I only have seen the first 2. I just ran out of time. Without getting too spoilerly, what do you think?
I think it's a solid continuation. It's funny because they go from 0 to 60. Like, they consolidate they consolidate an entire arc into one episode.
Yeah, man, and that was my reaction. And again, I haven't seen episode 3, but just based on the first 2, without spoiling anything for people who haven't seen it, things that I thought were going to take a lot longer.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking
real
about.
Fast. And the only thing I can think of why they would do that is because they probably assume a majority of people that are watching this show are familiar with the characters enough that they know these twists or whatever from the books, or just from, cultural,
from a
knowing.
40-year-old arc that was pretty infamous. Like that,
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, my guess is that they're saying like, yep, we're gonna do this, but we're not gonna try to build suspense for something that you already know is coming. So we're gonna get it out of the way, and hopefully they're just gonna go deeper into, whatever relationships come out of this and do something different with it. I guess like the way that they set it up, it's weird talking about a specific plot point without saying it.
Yeah.
The way they set it up was a little bit different, like the way that Batman is involved and his reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that because it's different, and I think that's probably a good way to go about dealing with this particular storyline, injecting something new into it and going beyond just the shock of a character reveal, I should say.
Yep. I think it's setting up the season too for it should be an interesting season. Not even with what you're casually referring to, but also a couple other Coriander's got a whole thing going on, and there's some. It's definitely not just focusing on a single situation. There's a lot of threads moving at this point.
Yeah.
So.
And it shouldn't, because it's an ensemble show.
Yep.
We're not. It's not a Nightwing show. As much as I would love a Nightwing show, it's more than that. So.
Right, and at some points during season 2, it did turn into the Nightwing happy hour for a while, but it brought it back around.
Yeah. And I gotta say, initially the biggest thing that I liked about it is the same reason that I thought the first season was a little slow, is that, like, I think I said when we first started talking about Titans on this show, like, I just wanted them to be a team already. Like, I don't want the origin. Like, I've read the books. I don't need the origin. I just be a team. And so this episode 1 right out of the gate starts with a great fight takedown scene. And it was great. I just loved every second of it. I was like, yay, they're all here. They're together. Most of them, anyway.
Definitely.
And speaking of
one
Titans
glaring
original...
omission there.
Sorry, what'd you say?
So one glaring omission at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm sure more to come on that.
Hopefully. Okay, let's wrap this up so I can go watch that 3rd episode of Titans. Got it. All right, speaking of Titans and original HBO Max programming, we also got a trailer this week for Doom Patrol Season 3, the weirdest show ever. Nothing is weirder than Doom Patrol.
No.
Things can try. And we're talking about, whether they're talking about comics or whether they're talking about the TV adaptation, nothing is weirder than Doom Patrol. And we got a cool trailer for Season 3. I'm excited because Season 2 ended on quite a big cliffhanger. And I believe that it wouldn't been quite big. I don't know how to say what I'm saying. I don't think the cliffhanger would have been quite as big, nailed it that time, if they didn't have to shut down production for the COVID-19 pandemic. I think there was going to be one additional episode at the end of Season 2 to kind of wrap things up, but they didn't get to, so crazy cliffhanger, and now Season 3 is here. It doesn't give you a whole lot of insight as to how they're going to get out of that cliffhanger or what's going to happen, but I'm just glad that it's coming back, people. And it's next month. It's September sometime, so I know, Steve, you can't talk too much about it because you're still towards the end of Season 1 of Doom Patrol.
Yeah, I've got
working your way through
1 or 2 episodes left of Season 1, and just, slowly plugging away at the behest of, like, I need to finish that because it really, if you haven't watched it, just go watch it. It's freaking great. It's weird, it's wacky, it's...
Yeah. If you can make it past Beard Hunter, then you're good. You're in.
I just got past the intro to Beard Hunter, so I was very close to doing exactly what you said. I'm like, yeah, okay. But yeah. Definitely go check that out. It's well worth putting in the time on the first 2 seasons, and we'll see more in September.
Yeah, can't wait. All right, jumping multiverses from DC to a galaxy far, far away. Got some Star Wars news this week. I am very excited about this, Steve. Very excited that it was announced that Disney is looking to cast Sabine Wren in the Ahsoka show for Disney+. So, those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Sabine Wren is a character from the animated series Star Wars Rebels. Works alongside Ahsoka Tano in some capacity throughout the series, I should say. I'm trying not to spoil Rebels. Really not to spoil Rebels at all. The end of... Okay, well, I should backtrack a little bit. Last year, it announced that they were making a Ahsoka Tano solo show for Disney Plus after she debuted in Season 2 of The Mandalorian, played by Rosario Dawson. Played wonderfully by Rosario Dawson, I should say. Now, Dave Filoni, Chief Creative Officer, is that his title? Chief Creative some guy?
Chief Cook and Bottle Washer for Star Wars, because that's who needs to be in charge of it.
Yeah, Chief of My Childhood Happiness, living on forever, Dave Filoni at Lucasfilm. Now, he was cagey at the time. He was asked when the episode that Ahsoka Tano appeared in took place compared to the end of Rebels. And he was cagey about it. And he said it doesn't necessarily take place after what we see in the end of Rebels or whatever. And again, not to spoil the end of Rebels, you should all watch it because it's great. It's really good.
Probably, dare I
so-
say, and I'm going to go out there, the best of the Disney Star Wars animation.
Oh, I hands down agree with you.
Yeah, the
Absolutely.
highs of Clone Wars were probably close to or higher than the highs of Rebels.
I agree.
But from
Yep.
top to bottom, there's like the whole series was just solid A.
Way more consistent than
Yeah.
Clone Wars, I believe.
Yep.
But I agree with you. The highs of Clone Wars are tough to beat, but Rebels is the more consistently great show. The end of Rebels ends with Ahsoka Tano teaming up with a character named Sabine Wren to go on a mission amongst other things to find Grand Admiral Thrawn, who she asks about in her episode. Ahsoka asks about in her episode of Mandalorian. Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn? So this, to me, all but indicates that her appearance in Mandalorian took place prior to her leaving to go on this mission at the end of Rebels with Sabine Wren. Now, Sabine Wren is a Mandalorian warrior who, at some point, wields the Darksaber in Rebels. In the Darksaber, which we have seen in Mandalorian, both season 1, end of season 1, and in season 2 quite a bit. So, Steve, I'm just super excited about this. Like, what do you think? Do you think that the Ahsoka show will be the mission with her and Sabine that we see teased at the end of Rebels to find Grand Admiral Thrawn?
Yeah, I think it's got to start out that way. Between where everything ended with Rebels and where literally the fact that she name drops Grand Admiral Thrawn. Jeez.
Yeah.
Been literally saying that name since 1991, and I can't drop it.
It's a bit of a tongue twister.
Yeah. He's a bit of a big deal if you don't follow any of the continuing canon, be it the old literal Thrawn trilogy or the 6 new books by Timothy Zahn or Rebels. Like,
yeah,
there's a lot of stuff out there about Thrawn. He's worth checking out.
Yeah.
That said, they're gonna have to take and I think there's nowhere else they can take the show. Like, that's kind of where it has to go because of what's gotten set up. So I'm all in.
I mean, at least they have to acknowledge it, or part of the show has to be there, or whatever. Whether or not that's the entire plot of the show, I mean, I think it would be great. I think it would be a very exciting. It would be a way to get Ahsoka away from whatever's going on in Mandalorian world.
Right.
Gives her a reason to not re-engage with Baby Yoda.
Right. Or also, that other Jedi that's out there.
I stopped myself
Starkiller?
Yeah.
Who's the one from the original trilogy? What's his name?
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
There you go. Yeah, got it. No, they the other thing is I don't know if I have ever had a reaction that my wife was like, "What in the hell are you insane?" The minute so there was the initial shock when Ahsoka showed up. And I was like,
yeah,
huh. And then she name dropped Thrawn, and I was just like I was like, huh, what just happened? She's looking at me like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, I love watching Mandalorian with my wife because she really likes it. She likes the Star Wars movies too, but she doesn't constantly rewatch them like I do. And she likes Mandalorian, but she's not steeped in the lore like I am. So I like watching it because she asks questions that she genuinely wants me to talk about. Like, she wants me to explain Star Wars things to her for like the first time in our entire relationship. I'm like, oh, I get to talk about this to you, and you actually care about it. Great, yes.
100%.
Well, cool. That'll be exciting. Again, they haven't said even who they're looking at to cast as Sabine, but the fact that they are doing it makes me very excited, and again, gives us kind of a glimpse into what that show is going to be about. Other bit of Star Wars news this week, and this isn't a huge drop. I just got excited and put it on the rundown because we finally got Taika Waititi talking about his Star Wars movie. This was rumored for a long time that Taika Waititi, writer-director of Thor Ragnarok, Jojo Rabbit, What We Do in the Shadows, all these really great films.
Thor Love and Thunder.
Comedies or otherwise. And the upcoming Thor Love and Thunder, yes. It was rumored for a long time that he was going to write and direct a Star Wars movie. It was officially announced in May of last year that he was going to co-write and direct a Star Wars movie, and he talked about it. He was doing press for Free Guy, I think, the Ryan Reynolds movie that he's in. And he said it's still in the very early stages. Quote, it's still in the exterior space, as in like the script direction. It's in the exterior space stage, he said. But we've got a story. I'm really excited by it because it feels very me. I tend to go down that little sincerity alleyway in my films. I like to fool the viewer into thinking, ha, it's this, and then have them going, damn it, you made me feel something. So I can definitely see that. He's a great when it comes to blending humor, but then sideswiping you with heart and emotion. He's very good at that, and he knows when. He's the only one that could have made a movie like Jojo Rabbit about occupied Nazi Germany and an imaginary Hitler best friend, and make it hilarious and also make it heartbreaking,
heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time, and
exactly.
He
can do anything.
I do love the self-awareness of that quote. Like, you read it and you're like, oh yeah, that's exactly what all his movies do. Okay.
But Steve, I'll put this to you. It seems like he's talking about, what he's kind of describing could be boiled down to be described as a bait and switch. And I think it's more nuanced than that, but he's literally saying, I like the viewer thinking that it's this and then surprising them with this. Star Wars fans in the past have not reacted great to thinking something's going to happen this way and then it ends up going the other way. Do you think that this movie could be divisive of the Star Wars franchise at all?
Well, spoiler from 1981, or 1980, there was a really big bait and switch. I don't know if you ever heard about it. I still haven't told my son, but Lucas did that in the original one. I guess the second one more appropriately. But I don't know. You know how the fandom has gone in various recent years, and it's. I guess if someone could get away with it, it's going to be Taika Waititi.
I agree. I think the answer to the question that I asked you of, is there a chance that this film's going to be divisive among Star Wars fans? The answer is 100% yes. Everything has a chance to be divisive against or with Star Wars fans.
I'd assume there are people who think Rebels is divisive.
Yeah, Star Wars is the only fandom where you get yelled at for liking it.
Right. Yeah.
Like you like it the wrong way.
Right. There's people that liked Rogue One the wrong way. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I know.
How? Like, that was a great movie. It's fine. Yeah. It fits everywhere. Whatever.
Yeah. Whatever. Anyway, again, that's not a super big piece of news, but it's great that that's actually happening. Because things
very much
go by so far without hearing anything. You're like, is that still happening? Because I was really excited about Taika Waititi making a Star Wars movie. So obviously there's no release date for that. We're way too far, and as he just said, he's still in the scripting stage. It won't probably be till well after Rogue Squadron, the Patty Jenkins movie. That's the next Star Wars movie that we're looking at anytime soon. Yeah, me too. Very excited. Staying in Star Wars, just for real quick, The Bad Batch wrapped up this week, the Disney Plus animated show in the same vein as Clone Wars and Rebels. Steve, what'd you think of the Bad Batch finale without really spoiling it for people who haven't seen it?
Thought it was solid. Thought it didn't quite. I don't know what I was going in expecting. I think I went in with the appropriate expectations of not too much happening, like no global shift in events because of a season finale.
Right.
So I think I liked it more than I've seen some people like it. I think it sets up the rest of what's happening because they did greenlight a season 2. Yep. I think it set up a season 2 pretty well. I think there were arcs that I'm trying to talk around some things that happened.
We can just say spoilers and
True.
Talk about it if we want to mention it. Yeah. So spoilers for the season finale of Bad Batch. If you haven't finished Bad Batch, skip ahead a few seconds. Steve's going to spoil it right now. Go.
So the Crosshair thing, what did you think? How did that hit you as far as an arc over the season?
I thought it was weird. Well, the weirdest thing about it is that at the end, he's just standing on that platform in the middle of an ocean planet with no hope of getting, like, what are you doing? Just get on that ship with them, dude.
Right.
Like, why are you just, you don't even have a radio. I don't, like, what are you?
But also,
what's
he'll
happening there?
show up, and there's no
Oh,
question.
of course he will. There won't be any explanation. Somehow, Crosshair has returned.
He found a sub-oceanic vessel that transported him somewhere or whatever.
Yeah. I thought it was a little, I mean, it's Star Wars, right? Like you got to redeem the bad guy.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a little meh, like
I did like that it wasn't
literally trying to kill them for the entire season, and he gets the chance and doesn't. I don't know.
I did like that it wasn't a total redemption though. Like his admission that his chip had been out for most of it, and it's like
that made me feel better about it.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's like all right, that was just him and whatnot. It wasn't
just
like
him following orders. Yeah,
right. There wasn't the Deus Ex Machina of the chip. Just oh now the chip's gone. We're all a happy family again.
Yeah.
So. That was nice. I think Omega gets set up pretty well for continuing the story. The fact that she's older than everybody else is just hilarious. So
yeah, that was cool too. I really liked in the when it starts in the second to last episode. Again, spoilers. The destruction of Camino I thought was awesome. I thought that looked incredible. And, you know, they kind of give you, like, the static shots of just, like, all the rooms or all the things that we've seen, whether it be from Attack of the Clones or Clone Wars or earlier in this season. Like, you're like, we've been here a lot. We've seen all these places, and now it's going away. I thought that was cool, and it was really effective. The animation was really incredible when the Star Destroyers are firing on it. It's exploding and falling into the water. Like, that was awesome. And that's the kind of stuff I like that, like... you know, it's more of a tie-in to the movies a little bit more. You know, that's when I start really more paying attention. I feel like unless something is drastically outside of the timeline of any of the movies, I kind of want them to tie into like whatever events or show me what happened after the fact or whatever.
Yep.
So
now
I thought it was good. Yeah.
At the same time, it was like you had all that happening. And it was tying into everything, but it stood alone in the sense that it was I don't know, it was enough of it filled in those, well, I guess not stood alone, but it filled in those gaps that you were talking about a couple weeks ago, where how we had talked about how we really wanted to find out more about the like what the Empire was doing switching over and how all that happened.
Right.
And it's like, oh, you blew up the entire planet that was housing all this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
That
but also at the end, I thought it was cool they keep that one
Nalisa?
Kaminoan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who
as,
is Omega's?
The Empire has big.
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, who is Omega's protector there too? Like that was the one who had major ties to her too. So.
Yeah, and they say, you know, the Empire has big plans for you, and as we all know, the Empire didn't shut down cloning altogether.
Yep.
You know, when they were done making their clone army. So,
love it or hate it.
Little ties like that, little like foreshadowing, like, oh, okay, this is a piece of the puzzle that fits in later on. I like that stuff a lot, and you know, again, Dave Filoni really good at threading those needles. So, yeah, I think season 2 sometime next year, I assume.
Yeah, I'd assume.
Yeah,
I don't think that has any shows that it has to beat out or be after. So
yeah, it's got its own little place in the timeline, I think, and I think it's going to be far away, removed from. I guess we don't know when. I guess no, Obi-Wan, and they say Obi-Wan Kenobi is going to take place a few years after Revenge of the Sith, right?
Yeah, I think
we talked about it a couple weeks ago, so
that'll definitely be post this, because this would have been. I mean, we saw Order 66, so this is
you're right.
Directly
this is
out
right
of it.
After. Yeah, so it probably. I guess I don't know how long the show was in time.
Right.
Months maybe. But yeah, so that's the only kind of potential, I guess, for crossover. One's live action, one's animated, so that's less likely. But whatever, they can do it. They can do it all if they want to. So All right, we are going to wrap up this week since we already got our comic book talk out of the way. We're going to wrap up. Oh no, got to talk about one more thing. Marvel. I was about to
More
jump
reactions.
into one. I was about to jump into one shots, but we got a Marvel reaction. The What If series started this week. There's only one episode that has dropped. I think some critics have seen the first 3 from what I've seen.
Yeah.
With varying reactions, but we've only seen the first episode because we're not that cool yet. Someday. Steve, what did you think about episode 1 of What If, starring Captain Carter and not Captain America?
Cliff Notes. It was a retelling of the first Avenger, and it was solid in what it did, and it was pretty much all set up, and that's about what I got out of it.
All set up. So do you think that these are going to tie into each other, or I assume these are going to be like one-off?
Oh no,
episodes.
they've come out and said that they're all going to tie into each other.
Oh, I didn't even know that. So okay.
So this is the start, and that's why she goes through the portal, and where does she end up?
Of course.
So
okay.
we'll follow.
See, I just thought that was just her own way of getting frozen. It's just like an acknowledgement to that. I didn't realize that they were all going to tie in. I thought I thought it was like an anthology series. So okay, the one that changes my review, I guess, a little bit because I thought it was okay. I thought it was fine. It didn't seem like something I was going to rewatch. I thought all the action was awesome. I loved seeing her, knock that shield around and take out Hydra dudes. I thought that was really cool. They did a lot of cool stuff that I wish I'd seen in the movies, I guess, if that makes sense. And not that they're not, I'm sure they're not done making Captain America movies. So we could see some stuff like that too. But
well, we already know Sam's getting his, so.
Exactly, yeah. I thought it was cool, but again, it was, kind of like we were talking about a couple weeks ago. Like, I can't see this being for getting new people into the MCU, but like for diehard fans, of course, they're going to love it. Like, I appreciated it, but, it wasn't like, wow, I got to watch every episode of this. Like, I thought it was good, but it didn't completely blow my mind. I thought some of the choices were interesting, but I guess, like you said, now looking back on it, knowing that it is literally setting up other things, to me, it does feel like setup. Like, we have to get through her origin to get her to present day, so let's just speed through it and get there. And I guess the other thing, too, that I thought was like moving really fast. So clearly, again, if they're setting things up, that makes a lot more sense to me now.
Yeah, and there were a couple of questions in it. Like, at the end, you have a giant tentacle monster, and this is Marvel.
Yeah.
And was that Shumagorath? Was that, like, are we going to see Shumagorath in the Multiverse of Madness? Like, we didn't see the eye that's always, like, his... Like, when you see Shumagorath, it's always, like, the eye with all the tentacles.
Around, yeah.
We saw a bunch of tentacles coming through a portal in the multiverse of the Marvel Universe. So, I'm not a doctor. Dr. Strange is, who happens to be facing Shumagorath on occasion. But it seems pretty likely that is a... whether or not it's, I guarantee it's not a huge foretelling of what's happening, but it's like... That's one of the... I'm pretty sure that's probably one of those nods to people that would recognize it, being like, oh yeah. Here's this little Easter egg for you.
Or it could be just set up for later in the series. Like, if this is going to be an Elseworlds Avengers, then that could be what they end up having to deal with at the end of the show.
Yeah.
So you never know. Yeah.
I'm here for all old gods. Why not?
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, super interesting. I've heard that the episode, I think it's the second one, that has T'Challa working with the Ravagers instead of being Black Panther. I've heard that's very, very good.
Oh, nice.
It's been a lot of people's favorites from the reviews that I've read, so I'm excited about that coming out Wednesday. So that's What If, and now, sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit, but now we're moving into what is going to be our final segment, one-shots. These are stories that are definitely worth mentioning, but not necessarily worth talking about for 10, 15 minutes diving into deeply. So we're going to go through some one-shots here, and I don't know, maybe we'll talk about them a little bit. But starting off with some comic book news, Tim Drake, Robin number 3, my personal favorite Robin, the Robin from my childhood growing up reading comic books, has officially come out as a member of the LGBTQ plus community, saying that people are assuming that he's bisexual just because he has dated women in the past, but also could be gay. Doesn't mean that he's definitely not gay because of that. So it also doesn't really matter. He's just a member of the LGBTQ community. In an issue of Batman Urban Legends, this has been hinted at for a long time, but accepted going on a date with his friend Bernard in the most recent issue, and a lot of people are very happy about it. Obviously, conservative idiots are furious about it, but what are you going to do? I think it's great, and I'm excited. Congratulations, fictional character, Tim Drake.
So, following that up, Venom 2 is delayed until October 15th because, of course it is, because, of course, COVID is still COVID. So, are we in for more delays? Are we in for more, like, I think we touched on it before. Does this predicate more, Disney Plus, Premier Access, HBO Max, direct-to-video? Like, is 2022 going to be all of the Warner Brothers studio stuff direct to HBO Max to drive subscribers there? Like, is this the tip of the iceberg, should we say?
I know this is a one shot, but I'm going to respond. I don't know. Like, I agree with you. I think it's really I think once we see what happens with like Shang-Chi in early September,
Yep.
Depending on how numbers are, that's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be like a real test, and like a couple other big movies that are coming out. But I do know that Warner Brothers signed a deal with AMC for a 45-day window.
Yep.
So if that contract is signed, then that means they're not going to be day-and-date releases for HBO Max. So I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, moving back to the regular quick-fire format of this. Sorry to interrupt. Todd McFarlane's Spawn movie reboot is getting a rewrite from screenwriter Brian Tucker. Now, McFarlane announced that he was going to write and direct a reboot of his own character, Spawn. That was announced in 2017. And even after that, Jamie Foxx and Jeremy Renner were announced to star. Jamie Foxx was going to be the titular Spawn. Jeremy Renner was going to be Twitch, the character of Twitch from that series. And then there's been nothing since then. There's a lot of speculation about Todd McFarlane not being a film director and whether that's going to hamper the development. I don't know. Maybe it has, and now it's getting a rewrite from this Brian Tucker. But it's still in development, still being worked on. It's going to be a Blumhouse film until otherwise noted, and it's going to be interesting. Because that first one was terrible.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to things that probably won't be terrible. Tom Taylor is announcing the Dark Knight of Steel comic for DC. So if you take the Justice League, you take Game of Thrones, you take Arthurian Legend, and you throw them all in a giant pot, what the hell do you come up with? We'll find out soon. Yasmin Putri on art, and we'll see what happens from there. I'm quite intrigued.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Last one shot, also comic book related. Danny DeVito is writing a Penguin short story for DC's Gotham City Villains Anniversary Giant issue this November. Danny DeVito obviously played the Penguin in 1992's Batman Returns to great success. And DC's been doing these anniversary issues as their characters hit their 80th anniversary. They did one for Superman and Batman a long time ago. Wonder Woman's gotten one. Flash, Green Lantern. Now they're doing kind of not an omnibus, but just a kind of sharing this anniversaries of multiple members of Batman's Rogues Gallery. I think Poison Ivy, Penguin, Ra's al Ghul, Scarecrow. A lot of these characters came out in the same year, so this is their 80th anniversary story. And Danny DeVito gets to revisit the Penguin, at least as a writer. I think this is great. I'm excited about this, Steve. And there's a lot of like nostalgia, clearly, for the Tim Burton era. We got Michael Keaton coming back in the Flash movie. We got Batman '89 coming out in comic book form. And I don't know. I heard Danny DeVito on Mark Maron's WTF podcast a few months ago, and he asked him about the Penguin, and he just spoke about it with real fondness. Even like did the voice like real quick. Like it was really great to hear that he had such a great time playing that character. Clearly has a fondness for it, and he's back in comic book form. And
yeah.
I can't wait to read it.
Two things to respond to that. Danny DeVito is still always, like, if I hear Penguin, I still see Danny DeVito's Penguin. Like, there's no two ways about that. And also, rolling it back to Titans, that Scarecrow iteration, like, Jonathan Crane in that, phenomenal. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just like the Lecter Light banter between him and Grayson it's very well done.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, I also read an article that Vincent Carthreiser, I don't know how to say his last name,
Sure.
from Mad Men and also from Angel, accused of misconduct on the set of Titans season 3.
Yeah, about that.
Good actor, but maybe a bit of a creep at the same time. So I guess we get to end the show on that down note.
Well, if you liked hearing about that, then get the hell away from our podcast. But if you,
I don't know. It's good. It's good to, I don't want to sweep anybody's bad behavior under the rug just because.
Oh no, I meant I phrased that wrong. If you support what he did, then get the hell out of our podcast.
I know what you meant. I'm just saying that, like, I think it's clearly good to talk about these things and not let the press just get away with this guy who, may be an asshole, getting away with being a jerk to women on set. So,
100%.
Anyway, yes, I agree that he's good as Jonathan Crane, and I think that setup is cool, having a Hannibal Lecter thing. But also, I guess when you're watching, keep in mind he might be a real life creep.
Absolutely. But on that note,
anyway,
feel free to like, subscribe, ring the bell on YouTube if you're watching us live, or if you're watching us whenever. We go live usually about 9:30 on Sunday nights. If you're listening in podcast form, please rate, review, subscribe. It helps the algorithms on any of the podcatchers. We are now on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts.
Everywhere.
Personally, I'm an Overcast guy, so we can be found wherever you subscribe to podcasts. If we're not, let us know and we'll find a way to get on that platform.
We'll get there.
So, other than that, if you need to see the latest episode or latest podcast, check out themultiversereport.com. If you want to email us, themultiversereport@gmail.com.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. We appreciate it, and we will see you next time in the multiverse.